We blessed the new month yesterday. It's a custom that between the 1st and the 14th we do something called Kiddush Levana, or the Sephardim called Birkat Levana. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Maariv on Motzei Shabbat. So that was
the moon prayer.
The moon prayer. Right. So Shavuot Tov and Chodesh Tov, we can say. Still, it's the beginning. A great month. Good morning, David. How are you? All right, gang's all here. Does everybody get a piece of paper and a pen one more time? And we're looking at page 274, 5, or if you prefer, you could look at the Yigdal. We compared them in the last class, looking at these principles of faith, with the caveat, with the little bit of reticence to deal with the fundamentals of faith. We read the beautiful parable of Rav Yitzchak Hutner, who explained why most medieval Rishonim did not involve themselves in this topic of study of the principles of faith. He said it's like only when you're not healthy do you try to notice the difference between your finger and your heart. It's just part of your body. It's just it's organic. It's part of the way you live. Only when something gets sick, then you have to obviously treat the heart differently and treat the finger differently. So we're striving for that health. But I think we live in an age, and especially a lot of us are coming, as I said, from different cultures. It does make sense to pay attention to the fundamentals of faith. And the Rambam definitely thought it was important enough to put into his commentary on the Mishnah, at least, if not later repeated in his greater work. I did mention that as fundamental as these 13 principles have become nowadays, everybody knows, you have to believe in the 13 principles of faith. It never, even the Rambam himself, who came up with them, he wrote them only in his earlier work. And then when in his major work of scholarship, the Yad HaChazakah, the Mishnah Torah, he doesn't really repeat them, at least not as a unit. The principles are mentioned, they're scattered throughout Hilchot Deot and Hilchot Yesodei Torah and Hilchot Melachim, some of them. So, nonetheless, it helps us to focus in and to try to understand, at least be a beginning of a discussion for us. Yeah.
So, question on anima. One concept I've thought of over the years. How do you know what you believe except by what you do? Like, how do you? I guess. What does it mean? What does anima mean?
Good question. The word to have faith sometimes is translated emunah. It's hard to translate exactly what is emunah. It's a big question, and perhaps it's a good place to start. You're right. We talk about these are the things you have to believe. We speak about the creed versus the deed. That sort of separation between thought and action is a little bit artificial. As we were saying before, we live our lives as you know what you believe by how you live your life, and from how you live your life, we can figure out what your assumptions are. It's not really that we give our kids a class in philosophy. Just believe X, Y, Z, right? We show them how to live, and they grow up, and then that's what it's a little bit more organic. You're right. In terms of what is emunah, it's a good question. Because if all that it is just intellectual understanding, well, not everybody's on the same level of intellect, and we talked about the first principle maybe is the existence of God, and we said, well, how could that even be a principle? You can't really understand God. If you can't understand him, how can you understand him, right? To believe means to understand, then you can't do it. So Rav Tzvi Cook explained, based on his father's writings, but that there's something called
I'm sorry, you said which?
The
father or the son?
The son of Tzvi Yehuda. also, so then you say, okay, so it's not knowledge, it's not understanding because you can't. So it's just a feeling or an intuition. So for most of us, that's a lower level. You don't really know something. You just sort of think it, or you sort of like maybe it's true, maybe it's not. You tend towards that. Well, that's a lower level of understanding. That's what we usually think about. Sort of, Rav Cook writes that what we have to understand that emunah is a higher level than understanding. It's not lower than understanding. Emunah, I mean, sometimes they say to use the Yiddish, right? You know something in your kishkas, right? That's what they say in the stock market. You know something from your gut, right? It's a gut feeling. So that it's not just a feeling like I feel good today or I feel bad or I feel a little queasy. A gut feeling, intuition. It can be something that's even stronger than understanding intellectual. And in other words, emunah is not smaller than understanding, but larger than, and it's more encompassing than. It encompasses understanding too, and you could say if you want to reach to have this belief, if we translate emunah as faith or belief, you want to get there. The step ladder to get there might be the understanding or trying to understand or trying to define, but ultimately the top of the ladder, the goal we're looking for is something much larger than intellect, because we're talking about things which are beyond our intellect. So emunah is really just almost synonymous with life itself. And it's like saying to live as a organic being includes within it, or perhaps the kernel of it, is this emunah, this type of belief. And Rav Soloveitchik, he was the leader of modern Orthodoxy in America for 50 years. He wrote and spoke great Jewish philosophy and of course halacha and Gemara, Be'iyun. And in all of his writings, very little attention does he give to the fundamentals of faith. Doesn't speak about proofs of God. Doesn't speak about reward and punishment as exactly the parameters of it. All these questions that the Jewish philosophy in the Middle Ages that they spoke about, and we talked about the Ikarim against the Rambam and Abarbanel and the Rav Krex. Very little. Although he was a master, of course, he was of Jewish philosophy. He wrote his doctorate in Herman Cohen, and just because nobody was there to be able to proctor he wanted to write about the Rambam, but nobody was as much a scholar as he was in the Rambam, so he wrote a doctorate about Herman Cohen. Anyways, this was when he was young, but he writes in more than one place that he just assumes it. In other words, for him, it's part of his worldview. It's like when he wakes up in the morning, he doesn't have to put on his glasses. The natural lenses with which he sees the world are that God exists, and that there's nothing even more real to him. And this is my teacher, his son-in-law, Rav Aaron Lichtenstein. He answered in an interview. There's a book. It was published in book form. An interview between Rav Lichtenstein and Rav Sabato. Rav Sabato was a teacher. I think he won the Israeli Prize for literature. Amazing Torah scholar in his own right. He decided to have a series of interviews with Rav Lichtenstein as he was getting older in life, and he wrote up the interviews. It came out as a book, an entire book about understanding Rav Lichtenstein and his thought process. And he also writes in a similar way. He says, "There's nothing more real to them in the world than the existence of God." Unbelievable. For people that didn't cultivate that feeling, it's a little bit shocking and almost. I actually told this over just in a shiur once, and the people didn't know who Rav Lichtenstein was. They didn't appreciate it. They didn't really. It sounded just like a bravado. But he meant none of that. It was the farthest thing from him to in any way be arrogant. He was just really expressing the inner core of who he was and what the way he lived his life, and and so that's beyond description. It's really beyond. You can't describe life itself. You can't really define it. So you have a good point. Because I'll going to answer Ruben's question really about what is emunah, and so it's something more deeper and above um, intellectual belief and creed, like we were making distinction creed indeed, and this trying to have a philosophical definition of what these beliefs are and what you must, otherwise you're a heretic and all that. So really the core of the discussion is much more deeper. And perhaps the other Rishonim who didn't follow this whole discussion or don't engage in the Rambam's attempt at definition, and maybe even the Rambam himself in his later writings reflect that this whole discussion is lacking something. This whole discussion is perhaps a little bit superficial, or it doesn't really reach the kernel of what is belief. Nonetheless, as I said, it's the ladder. The step ladder for us to get there, perhaps to try to understand where we're headed and to understand what Judaism is. It is a little bit of approach coming from the outside as opposed to from the inside, like I was describing with Soloveitchik and Rav Kook as well. So I hope that answers the question.
It does. So your teacher was the son-in-law of Rav Lichtenstein? Is that?
No, Rav Lichtenstein was my teacher, and he's the son-in-law of Soloveitchik.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
I'm very blessed to have good teachers. And of course, here we are, all teachers of Rabbi Good, who's a student of Rabbi Yehuda Kook. So we're connected to all the lines of great leaders of the 20th century.
Amazing.
We're all students of Rabbi Weinberg.
Mahal Meir is a special place. This is amazing.
We're all links in the chain, Moshe.
Yeah.
Oh, Hashem.
It sounds like the topic of Amunah is its own topic of it.
Absolutely. We're doing a little bit of subsection of our fundamentals. We talked about the fundamentals of Tefillah, or fundamentals of Shachrit. We talked about the fundamentals of Jewish history. We're talking about the fundamentals of faith. We're trying to cover the basics so that we're all speaking the same language for the rest of our studies. So at Hashem, this course is a springboard, it's a platform for you to grow and continue your studies, really just touching upon the basics. Okay, so everybody have this is a great introduction, though. Thank you for pushing me in that direction. I hadn't really planned to talk about Emunah in that way, but it is getting to the essence. Back to the Rambam, back to the Yigdal versus the Animami. I want everybody to write down one word or two words for each of the 13. What it actually, how would you could copy over the Rambam, of course, but that wouldn't be so helpful. And but trying to put one word for each of the 13. Okay, I'll give you two if you have to, just for the grammar, But the point is, everybody need a pen? Everybody have one? Okay. You could use your computer. Or your phone.
Oh, this is my personal one, so I like to.
I might need a
Pen? Yeah. Pass this on. Moshe.
finish right. Those
Oh.
two words. Both.
I need
That's
pen.
pressure you mean.
One word for each of the 13. What it says, what encapsulate it. Try to grasp the principle, the fundamental in one word. Okay. Sometimes fancy English words are useful in this context. Can teach you some English.
I'm pulling up a thesaurus because I need to find the right word.
Go for it.
Oh,
Good morning, David. How can I help? Yeah. I did it 10:15. Sure. Thank you. And then when you're done, please divide them into the three parts, three basic parts we spoke about yesterday. A little bit of review, just to make sure you're on the same page with me.
And after dividing three parts,
That's it. Then we're going to discuss it.
which
Tell me what are the 3 parts. Yeah, I mean, you'll have to.
I wasn't here.
Okay, try to think of it yourself then. Try to think of it yourself. Try to put it into categories. There's 13. Divide them into 3. Sorry for asking you to think. I know it's a little bit much on a Sunday morning, but.
It's hard to think.
Oh, shalom, amos. Boker tov. Okay, so let's discuss it. Okay, let's. Hopefully you're done. Everybody's done. Okay, let's start. Number 1. What you got, Renan? What you got for number 1?
One word. Greater.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
I think just make a suggestion. I think it'd be easier if we just go around in a circle. Everyone says all their 13 words.
No, let's go
No,
one at a
okay.
time.
Okay. I put ruler.
Ruler. Okay. Anybody else got something else?
Well, I got in general of creation, like everything that involves everything we can see and observe the universe.
I write existence.
Existence.
Yeah.
That's what I wrote also. Existence. We saw that in comparison to the Yigdal didn't mention anything about creation, didn't mention anything about, Asal said that he's going to do everything that is, was. It was a little bit of a red herring, the formulation in the 13 Principles of Faith. But in the Yigdal, I think he gets to the crux of the issue, which is the existence. Okay, so God's existence. Leave out that word. One word, existence. That's the way I would put it. Okay, existence of God. And number 2.
Can I say for number 1, I had deliverer.
Deliverer.
Because he rules all creatures, and he showed his might, when he brought us out of Mitzrayim.
All true things. I think it's missing the point of principle number 1 in the Ram.
Yeah.
That might be towards the end of the Mashiach. That's maybe number 12. God is ultimately going to save him.
Yeah, I had those matching up in the same category. 12 and 13 with number 1.
I see. So, so I think that the major point of number 1 is the existence of God. It's a good place to start, always, right? Number 2.
I have singularity.
Singularity, good.
Wow.
Anybody else?
I said oneness.
Oneness.
unity.
Unity.
One.
Unity. Pretty. Yeah, all the same direction, right? I think usually we use the word
What's the similarity?
unity or oneness or uniqueness.
Not the singularity, but a singularity.
It's a black
Means something
hole?
else. Yeah, means something else in modern physics. But okay, it's fine.
It's a black hole? Come on.
It's a technical term for.
I know what it means.
In any case, number 3. What do you got?
Corporeal.
Intangible.
Incorporeal, intangible. Okay.
I said God's. What did I say here? Amaterial.
Immaterial. Okay.
No thing.
No, nothing. Okay. Wow. If number 1
No
was
thing.
thing, this
No
is no thing, right?
Yeah.
Not physical.
Right. Not physical. Good. Okay. Number 4.
Eternal.
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 Eternal. Number 5.
Almighty.
Almighty. Excellent. We said the other day.
I like what you
omnipotent,
said
right?
better than what I wrote.
Okay. Almighty's good. Because why do I like it? Because it has the term all in there, and I think that's part of the point of this principle of faith, as we saw in the Animamins. It says don't worship anybody else, right? So it's Almighty. It's a polemic against the Avodah Zarah, worshiping other gods. So if he's Almighty, it's you only worship him, and that seems to be the major point. If he's powerful, so then if he's Almighty, so that's who you should worship, nobody else. Okay, number 6.
Prophetic.
Okay, or just prophecy, the concept of prophecy. Yeah, it exists. Yeah. Number 7. Obviously,
Most
Moshe. Number 7.
Actually, for number 7, I wrote paternity.
That's really interesting, Moshe.
So
You're afraid to put yourself in there as a principal. But,
I am the most humble guy I know, but no,
it seems to be pretty focused on the guy, Moshe.
I know. Well, I thought one word. I could have just said Moshe, but I realized that when
He's
I
the
read
father of the prophets.
he's the father of the prophets. Therefore,
okay.
not just father of prophets, but also father of all of us in a way. So I felt like the word paternity. It's not just who was Moshe, but what was Moshe? Moshe was the father of the prophets. Therefore,
Right.
he had paternity
Okay.
to the prophets. That's what
Okay.
felt
I
like.
hear it. I hear it. Yeah.
I had 2 words. Korach lost.
Nice. In your face, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
Because that's what he says every day, isn't it?
Who says every day?
Korach.
What does he say?
Yeah,
every
yeah.
day?
I think the Midrash says that every day he says Moshe is true and his
Moshe
Torah
is true and his Torah is true. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Good. That's already number 8. Number 8 is Torah. All right? They go together. Prophecy, Moshe, the Torah, and number 9.
changing Torah.
The unchanging of the Torah.
Complete.
Complete. Okay. The complete of, but it's sort of like a extension of number 8, right? Eternal. Number 10.
All knowledge.
omniscient.
All knowledge.
No.
I
Said God
put down. I
knows.
did put down providence because I think it's not really. Providence brings you to number 11. Maybe you said for number 11 providence, but providence. It depends what it means, philosophical. Or what is actually the word? Does it have an element in there of? Is it only knowledge or it's actually care? Providence and. Does it refer? I'm not sure how. It doesn't matter really what the word is, but that he's all-knowing, and number 11 is that he there's a reward and punishment.
Judgment.
Judgment, is that what you wrote? Okay.
Where? 11?
What did you have for 11?
Mitzvot.
Mitzvot. But there's also a verod in there. So you have 2 words. It's okay. Mitzvot and a verod. It's fine. Anything else? Everybody say
I can make judge.
judging, judgment,
And
right?
justice.
Justice. Okay. Number 12 is obviously Mashiach, right? And number 13 is
Redemption.
okay, resurrection in particular, but redemption is part of
So-
both of those. Is
so
part of
for-
redemption. Maybe.
For 12, I obviously Mashiach
Yeah.
is the concept, but I also had the word faithful. for 12
Mm.
because you know, even if we don't see it, Hashem is faithful and
Good.
Mashiach will come.
I like it. I like it. Okay. So what are the three categories? How did you divide them up? 1 through, if you have them in order. Asa, what did you get?
So 1 through 5, I had the existence of God.
Right.
And
Can everybody see that? Yeah? And then,
so 6 through 9, I had so Torah, Revelation.
yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
for the rest, I had reward and punishment. Or
Interesting.
justice. I'm kind of having a hard time figuring out how to put Mashiach in there. This is a little,
Yeah.
it's a little more abstract for me. Is that
Right.
pertains?
Right. Redemption in general, you could say, but yeah, it's hard to categorize them. But I think the other day I said it's something to do with the feedback loop, that there's responsiveness between God and the world. It's not as opposed to the watchmakers, right? That God's involved, and all these are ramifications. His providence is judging us, is bringing Mashiach and resurrecting the dead. So it's God's involvement, perhaps you could say, which is usually the neatest way to say that is redemption. Is that God will bring redemption. That means that He's involved in the world. It means that there's some kind of a plan. It means there's some kind of responsiveness. So there was a great Jewish philosopher who wrote a book called The Star of Jacob, I think it's called. Star of Redemption. Star of Redemption. Who was that?
Abraham, no. Star of Redemption. That was written in the 1800s, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, even beginning of the 19th century, I think. Beginning of the 1900s. I don't know when he died. Franz Rosenzweig. Star of Redemption, and he made a Jewish star out of it. Right? He had, because there's the three basic principles. He starts off with, somebody really cleaned up the board really nicely. It's really nice. I don't know who did that, but
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh no, it wasn't me.
Franz Hosenlight.
Right, Franz.
Franz Hosenlight.
He said these are the three basic principles of Judaism. Creation, I guess we would say, instead of that, existence of God. You said 1 through 5 is about God Himself, right? Revelation, of course, is the second group, from 6 to 9. And then the last one, calling it redemption, essentially means that it's not just a one-time thing, that there was a revelation between God. God created the world, and then He revealed Himself, and then ultimately this providence continues into the future. This is the way He put it. And then, why does He call the book The Star of Redemption? Because then He had another 3, which He put like this, which is very, very sweet. And what were those 3? Those 3 principles are about man. You looked it up? Did you look up the so
Yeah.
tell me, what are his the 3 points? Because I have trouble remembering them right this second. The other 3 points of the star. It's very cute to have one word for each, but as I said, my one word would here be,
Okay.
existence of God, and
here
then
there's more.
Revelation's good, and redemption also not bad. What are the other 3 points of the 6-pointed star of Star of David, Star of Redemption?
It's God, world,
Mm.
and humanity, like
Ah,
Israel.
right. So I guess you could say the world, God, and Israel.
Yeah.
Or maybe I put
Or humanity.
right. I put Israel here
It's
because the revelation is
opposite.
here, and then
the first
Ah.
3.
sorry. Yeah,
The first 3, it's up. It's like God.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
God is up.
God is up. That makes sense. Yeah. Doesn't matter. But you can turn the star if you like.
Yeah.
But these are the subjects, right? These are the who is involved, and this is the processes that are involved to connect them all. And it's a cute, nice. I'll just show the people who are watching online. Maybe God should be here in Israel. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Maybe you could play with one on top of the other and have it spinning. Yeah, have like a gears, have like these relationships. In any case, I wanted to give you some. Yeah.
I started to read the Derech Hashem,
Great.
and I understand not understand, but I accept the fact of like the creator, like he's one, everything. It's easy to in our beliefs. It's easy, but why he creates, like the purpose of creation, it's so hard to get why.
Yeah.
Why he creates.
I think you're right. It's very hard.
Like there's the second topic is like a purpose of creation.
Right.
And it's like to share his good with another. But it's hard to think about that.
It is.
It's like you see like the humanity in itself, like the people, like they suffer.
Right.
So
how is that
sharing
giving his goodness?
Yes,
Right.
But there's a lot of suffering. It's like for what we need to suffer so much.
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
why he creates.
So, why God created the world is a big philosophical question, and there's a few answers within our tradition. One famous one that the Ramchal writes about in Derech Hashem is that it's the nature of goodness to give goodness, to bestow goodness. If you say that God is good, he has to have good to give to someone else. So he created somebody else to give him that good. It's an interesting mechanism. In any case, the Ramchal himself, Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, in another book, he gives an additional answer to the same question. And amongst the Kabbalists, we find this question addressed in numerous places. There he says it's not about, maybe it's not really a different answer, but it's a redefinition of the answers. Ultimately, the best that he can give us, the thing that we can most understand, that we can most incorporate, the best thing that he can give us is he himself, because he's ultimate goodness, right? And so he had to create a system so that we would be able to receive himself. And what part of himself we can't understand God? God's unity, right? This is the book, The Knowing Heart, which some people pulled out here as also a book. It looks very similar to the Mesilat Yesharim, but it's and Derech Hashem, all three written by the same author. But he relates to this in various layers, like the Kabbalists have dealt with this question, and the philosophers deal with this question as well. And like you said, it's hard to wrap our heads around. We can't know everything about God, or we would. Ilu yida'ativ hayitiv. There's an expression in Hebrew that works better than in English. If I knew him, I would be him. There's a little bit of a rhyme in the Hebrew. Ilu yida'ativ. If I could know him, dat hayitiv. I would be him. So we can't really know him, but. Okay, so that's a precise. It's definitely a topic to go into.
What was Luzzatto's other book that you mentioned?
The Knowing Heart, Da'at Tevunot, and Derech Hashem is the third one that Renan is reading right now. Okay, so what I'd like you to right now go through the list. Now that you have a list, you have one word for each. Ask yourself, which one or two or three would you find the most interesting, that you'd like to learn more about, that you'd like to investigate, that you think I really need to understand more about this?
Only one.
Or
Which one?
1, 2, or 3. You can say your top three with topics out of the 13.
13?
Out of the 13, which is the?
All right.
I would use your list, not the books, but You know what they are each talk about. Or, the categories as well. So we talk 3 categories. You chose 3? You chose 3, Ruvain?
I chose 2.
2, okay. Anybody else? Everybody's got something? Wait a minute, let me choose. What interests me most? Okay, so let's hear. We're gonna do a voting. Okay, Ruben, what do you got? Number 1.
Number 1 and number 11.
So number 1.
Number
and
1
we
would be
will
my
vote
number
for
1.
11. Right. So number 1. Okay, I'll just put the numbers. We know what they are already, right? Okay, David, what do you got?
I got the number 3, 11, and 13.
3, 11. So add a mark, a plus here, and 13 as well.
13, yeah.
Okay. So 11 is what?
11 is like
Reward and
justice, like a
punishment.
word.
Yeah. Okay. And that's what you said also. Reward and punishment. That's what you meant,
I
like
had
justice.
judgment.
Yeah. And resurrection. Okay. Great. Almost.
I have 2 and 10.
2 and 10. 2 is what did we say? That's got unity. And number 10 is providence, or
He knows.
that he knows everything. Okay, cool. Okay, good morning, Hirsch. Number Rena. Go ahead.
Okay. Put 1,
1,
6,
6.
and or 12 or 13.
6 is prophecy, and 12 or 13. So I'll put for 13. I'll put an extra.
I think it's
Okay.
related.
They're related. Okay, Russell, what did you got?
I had 8, 9, and 11.
So good. 8, 9, and 11. I'll put another plus on that. 8, 9 is the Torah, right? And Torah is eternal. And 11 is this reward and punishment. Okay, good. Thomas.
1, 10, and 13.
So 1, 10 is what, the eternal of Torah, right? No, what 10 is providence. Right. So and 13 you said?
Right.
I got 5 and 11.
5. What's 5, remind me?
5.
Almighty.
Yes. It's like in my study, it's like prayer should be directed towards Hashem.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Moshe.
5, 9, and 10.
5. So I'll put a plus by 5. 9. I'll put a plus by 9. And 10 also. Wow. So quite a wide range. I was hoping we'd everybody would say one of them, and then we'd focus in on that. But I see that 11 is very is the winner in terms of 4 people said it out of is the most, got the most votes. And then we have a tie for second place between number 13, number 10, and number 1. Right? Perfect. Although if you put 10 and 11 together, because we said the category is God's justice is connected to His providence. So then it shows a really strong win, because we have 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 votes for this category, 10 and 11. And if we add 13 to that same category, so then that's already 10 votes out of 10. How many do we have here? People could vote more than once, but it's okay. So this latter part is a big area of interest, and then of course there's interest in that and all of the others too. But number 1 and 8, 9, I put them together, so they have 3, and then there's 3 for number 1. So those are okay. What I'd like to do now is everybody get your pens and papers ready. Same piece of paper. I'm going to give you a little bit of a map where you could read up more about each one of the 13. And of course, I showed you lots of books, right? We made a section for the fundamentals of faith, the first column here. You can find it in all those books. But I'm going to give you where the Rambam writes about them in greater detail in his own writings. Learning the Rambam from the Rambam is perhaps the best way to start. So, of course, the entire list, as I said before, the entire list is stated in this commentary to the Mishnah, and it's always a good place to start. He discusses all 13. His commentary on the Mishnah in his introduction to Masechet Avot. Sanhedrin. In his introduction to the 10th chapter of Sanhedrin, where it talks about the heretics, that's where the Rambam has his list of 13, and he has got it's not just a list over there, it's actually a paragraph or two about each one. So in the Rambam commentary on the Mishnah, Tractate Sanhedrin, chapter 10. Because that's true for all of them, all 13. Now, what's interesting...
So is that commentary on the Mishnah, or is that Mishneh Torah?
Commentary on the Mishnah.
Okay, thanks.
Now, in his Mishneh Torah, that's what I'm going to talk about now, and we'll see how these 13 are not collected in one place, but they're discussed in different places, and thereby I'm actually teaching you something about the structure of the book called the Mishneh Torah. I actually have for you somewhere here. I don't know if I brought it. A list of the entire structure of the book. Don't think it's here. Let me just double check quickly. If it is here, that would be a bonus. There's lots of goodies here, but I don't think that goodie is here. There's a one-page description of the structure of the Mishneh Torah, which I have somewhere. I have it perhaps in Hebrew. I want to have it in English on one page for you. I'll get it for you. But for now, without seeing the structure, I'll tell you where they appear. Number 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 1, 2, and 3 are discussed at the very beginning of the book of Mishneh Torah. Who knows what the first subsection of the first book is? First of all, what are the 14 books of the Rambam's Mishneh Torah? It's divided into 14 books. First one is called the book of Mada. Mada means knowledge. It's usually translated as knowledge. We have it here in the translation. And the first section in the first book is called the fundamentals of the Torah, the laws of the fundamentals of the Torah. Right? It's a law book. They're all called laws. The first book of Mada, book of knowledge, and the first section in there is the fundamentals of the Torah. So you'd expect a lot of the fundamentals of faith to be in there, and they are. 1, 2, 3, the very beginning, the first chapter of the first book of the book. Rambam, right, opens up his book with these fundamentals of faith. Number 1, 2, and 3, about the existence of God and his unity and his not having no form. That's where you're going to find it. Number 4, that God is eternal. Interestingly, it doesn't really appear there. but it does appear, it's mentioned in the laws of tshuva. There's another section of the Rambam at the end of this book, same book, Book of Knowledge. It's the first one, which discusses a lot of knowledge is not really the best translation. In the Rambam's view, Mada is
Understanding, maybe?
maybe understanding is better than knowledge, but we'll talk about it another time. The laws of tshuva is at the close of this book. And there we're going to find some discussions of additional fundamentals of faith as well. So the number 4 is mentioned there. Number 5, what was number 5?
Almighty.
That he's almighty.
Pray
only to him.
Only to him.
So that's where you'd find that principle is in the laws of Avodah Zarah. Also in this book, the book of Madad, you could call it maybe the book of fundamentals of the Torah, Yesodei HaTorah. It's called the fundamentals of the Torah. So in the second to last section, it's called the laws of idol worship. And there you have a discussion that you only worship God and versus all the other idols. Number 6, 7, 8, and 9. We said that's the next grouping, right? 6, 7, 8, and 9. They're discussed in also Yesodei Torah, but they're not in chapters 1 and 2, but that's in chapter 7, 8, and 9.
7, 8, 9 of what?
Of the
Mada?
laws of Yesodei HaTorah, the fundamentals of the Torah. The first part of Mada. The first part of Mada is called the laws of the fundamentals of Torah.
So
Yesodei
Mada,
HaTorah.
first
That's the first
section.
book. The first section is called the laws of the fundamentals of Torah. So you have the first grouping really treated at the beginning of those laws in chapters 1 and 2. And then chapters 7, 8, and 9, you have the second grouping that we mentioned. Also, there's 2 other places that you would to really, for number 8. What's number 8?
Torah is the same as the one given to Moshe.
Right. Or the very fact that the understanding what Torah is. Torah is the revealed word of God through Moshe. The Torah that we have. So there you're going to find a long, long discussion of the principle of the Torah in his introduction to the book, the Mishnah Torah. Also in his introduction to the Mishnah. The Rambams, then they're actually published as separate essays. We have them here in the library. I'll show you in a minute. The introduction to the Mishnah Torah, though, if we're looking for where these appear in the Mishnah Torah, this is even before he gets into, before he even starts. He talks about the whole Torah, how it was revealed at Sinai, and how it was passed down from generation to generation, the oral Torah, the written Torah. That's an introduction. Also, a little bit in some other laws, I won't mention them now. Next. When we go to the next section, here, the providence, right, number 10, what did we say? That God knows everything? So that appears at the beginning of the book in chapter 2, together with 1, 2, and 3. We talked about those principles, but also is discussed together with number 11, which is, the principle of God's justice, our reward and punishment, however you want to say it. And this appears in the laws of Teshuvah. We mentioned them before, that they're the last section in the book of Mada, the laws of Teshuvah, the laws of repentance.
So 10 is the laws of truth.
10 and 11 laws of Teshuvah. To tell you the truth, we're going to focus in on that, so we'll talk to you more about that, right? Because we see that this is the major area of interest from your survey. So maybe we'll start with discussing these issues. We're going to be learning some of the laws of Tshuva, the Rambam in his discussion of these topics in the laws of Tshuva. B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow. Okay, so we're really trying to be responsive here to the public requests. Okay, next. So that's the 5th chapter of Hilchot Tshuva, and number 12 is also discussed in Hilchot Tshuva. And the resurrection of the dead, as I said to you.
10, 11, and 12 are in Tshuva.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Also number 12, I think I told you earlier that the Rambam's discussion of Mashiach, it appears at the end of the book, at the last part of the book. It's called Sefer Shoftim, Judges. It's the 14th of the 14 books, and the last section is called the Law of Kings, Kings within the book of Judges, and there he discusses Mashiach in chapter 11 of the Laws of Malachim. But it does appear also a little bit in Hilchot Tshuva. And number 13 doesn't appear much in the Mishnah Torah. As I said, that's why some people got really angry at the Rambam, because they were worried that he doesn't believe in resurrection. And so he wrote a separate essay, an essay on the resurrection of the dead, clarified what he sees as the eschatology.
What's that essay called?
It's called An Essay on the Resurrection of the Dead. Ma'amar Tchiyat Hametim. Ma'amar, essay, Tchiyat Hametim, resurrection of the dead. Maybe we'll learn some of it as well. Although I can refer you, I think there's a YouTube video of me teaching that in 10 minutes on the Machon Meir website somewhere, on the YouTube channel, on Meir TV or something like that. I'm not sure though. It's been many years ago. Okay, questions so far? Everybody have a resource where to go, at least for the first place to go to look to see the Rambam's larger discussion of these issues? Now, for the remaining minutes, let me show you where our Rambam section is in this library. So, by the way, the Hebrew Rambam, there's a Hebrew Rambam over there in many volumes. This is one volume. All of the 14 books of the Rambam, the big book of the Rambam, the Mishnah Torah, is in this one volume. There's no commentary. That's why they can get it all into one book.
Commentary of the Rambam.
The Rambam on it, there's an index in the back.
Rambam's commentary on himself or
No,
others?
there's no commentary.
Oh.
It was a joke. There's no, but you do have an index, and that's all in Hebrew.
Other people commentary.
For the English translation, the best English translation, you have this. It's many volumes. I can't probably 14 or 16 volumes, because a few of them they divided it up.
Mm-hmm.
But each book, you can see it has the Mishnah Torah of the Rambam. This is Hilchot Tefillah, number 2. So you see they divided some up, so it's more than 14 volumes. This entire translation is printed by the Moznaim printing press. It's online for free in English, so it's good to know. You can find it. The Chabad websites have it. See, the Rebbe, the Babich Rebbe, was a big fan of the Rambam, as was my teacher of Luchnas. He suggested that it's a great way to learn Torah. The Rambam wrote it for a reason, and he did a really good job at it. The Rambam had a lot of ideas about why to write this book. Code of law, a little bit overstepped. His sights were set. People were upset. He basically said, "I want this to replace the Talmud. The Talmud is too long. It's too complicated. It's not written in Hebrew. It's in Aramaic, and it's complicated. And there's discussions. And you come out from reading the tractate Shabbat, you're confused. You don't know what to do. I need to summarize all that and put it in the laws of Shabbat, in my book of code of law of what to do." So basically, the Rambam tried to make a summary of all Torah and put it in one book. It's a little bit megalomaniac, a little bit, to be able to do that. And so that's why there was a lot of opposition, because you can't really summarize the Torah. And the Torah is a living thing. It has to continue. The debates are going to continue. The Rambam, and additionally, what he didn't write the sources. And so
He considered Mishnah also?
yes, of course. Yes, he wrote his commentary on the Mishnah first, and he included everything in the Talmud. There's a discussion of the Mishnah, and other sources as well. We talked about the Midrash, right? So the Rambam really tried to get it all in one book. He did a great job, but The only caveat is that it's not the end of Torah, so you can see Torah continues till today. And it's impossible to say there's one book that summarizes all of Torah. But he did a pretty good job. And for somebody who wants to access the Talmud and they don't know Aramaic and they don't have time or whatever, if it's pretty good Hebrew, so modern Hebrew, you can probably read most of the Rambam's Hebrew, and all you need is a word here and there, and you have an English translation, and you have the whole thing summarized in you know how many chapters? He was a master organizational genius. 1,000 chapters. Perfect, right? It had to be a complete number. 1,000 chapters. That's not bad. 1,000 chapters.
Nothing to read.
If you do, so the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, do one a day, one chapter a day. You'll be finished in
3 years.
3 years. Great system. And then, so that's why the Lubavitcher have it on their website. Because they said, if everybody would just read, you have it right here in your Chayenu daily Torah study, you have a chapter a day, right?
Yeah, it's
There's another system where you do 3 chapters a day.
It's right here.
And there it is. You do 3 chapters a day, you finish in 1 year. Pretty good. If you read the Parsha every day, every week, you finish the Torah in 1 year. So if you read 3 chapters of the Rambam every day,
And if you read 7 pages of the Talmud, too,
that's also a great
you'll
system.
be done in a
It's
year.
great. It's great. A little bit harder. The Rambam, as I said, is it's a presentation which is quite readable, even if you don't get everything. So I know quite a few people that do the system of reading 1 chapter of the Rambam a day, and they've been through the Rambam many times. That's the book of the Rambam. So, but this is the Hebrew. Just showing you why it's in one volume. Makes it easier. This is another translation of. This is volume 1. So it's the laws of Yesodei Torah. Pass this around so everybody can see. It says Hilchot Yesodei Torah, the laws of the fundamentals.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, this is just one section translated. These
Uh,
should be
excuse me,
here.
Rob. There are Hebrew translations of the Talmud, yeah?
There are Hebrew translations of the Talmud as well, but we're not discussing them.
Are they mutar?
Yeah. Okay, this is another. This is individual sections of the Rambam that have been translated. The ones that are more practical to show you now
Why so proud?
is.
I'm just happy, man. Just always happy.
Why so proud?
Hesed.
There was some other books.
Well,
But I can't see them right now. Anyways, maybe this one. Oh, there's another one in here. That's it. We have this set and a few individual volumes of other translations.
Most of the Rambam's work is also on Safari.
Yeah, it's
Most
the
of
same
it's on
translation
Safari.
as Safari as well. Yeah, it's the same translation on Safari.
I actually think there's on Safari, I think they have a different translation of the Rambam.
Is it
comparing the two of them.
Is it- oh,
They're a little
great.
different, yeah.
Oh, interesting. I wonder who did that one.
How thick? How big is the difference?
Digital to digital. I don't know. I mean, I've just looked like at certain lines before, and I've noticed
Yeah.
like there's different nuances, but they're. So I was looking at the Hebrew. I'm like, I could see like either way, and it was nice getting like a different perspective on how it could be read.
It's always good to see different translations, for sure. Okay, so we're going to stop here for today. And we're going to learn a little bit from Hilchot Teshuvah, chapter 5 tomorrow, to begin our discussion of the last section of the principles of the Rambam. Okay?
from the Mada.
From the Book of Mada, correct.